So by now, we've all seen the live-action One Piece trailer. We've all seen it. We've seen Luffy's arm. We've seen Zoro fight. You know, we got that. Today is not a reaction to that video. I've already seen the video, so I can't react to it. If there's a second trailer, I'll do that later. This one is about expectations going into this series. There's a few caveats to this. These caveats include that this series, which we know this already, is going to go from the beginning of East Blue up until the end of East Blue, that entire saga, as well as only being 8 episodes long. At least that's what Wikipedia says, that's what I'm trusting, that's my source. Granted, this is working under the assumption that each episode is about an hour long. I don't see how they could do this in 30 minutes. East Blue, 8 episodes, 30 minutes long, that ain't happening. An hour long for each one does make sense though, about an hour. I say 50 minutes to an hour. Here's another issue though. East Blue is 61 episodes long, and that is including filler, by the way. So we can cut that out maybe about like 10, maybe about 10 episodes at most. 5 maybe, so let's just drop it to 55 episodes. 55 episodes for East Blue. My expectation going into this is that the East Blue Saga is going to be heavily condensed, which is fine because it kind of does need to be condensed. The writers for this series are going to have to get a little creative with the pacing of the show. That's what this is. This is going to be an entire video on the live action's pacing. For episode 1, obviously it's going to start with the Luffy jumping out the barrel. I mean, you know, Kobe and all that first. Jumping out the barrel, fight Alvida. It's going to cover a couple episodes. It's going to cover all the way until we get Zoro and leave the island. We're going to meet Axehand Morgan. We're going to leave the island on his little dinghy that he's got. That's the first episode in its entirety. That's going to get us through a good chunk of the first couple episodes, because that lasts 3 to 4 already right there. At the same time, the end of the episode is probably going to end, either it's going to end with it, or it's going to be interspersed with Zoro on the stakes with his backstory. While Zoro's on the stakes, or while they're leaving, it's going to have Zoro's backstory. They're going to have to get creative and to move that around, because that doesn't happen until later, but that covers an entire episode in the anime, and they don't have time to do that in this 8 episode series. So yes, episode 1, Luffy into Zoro with Zoro's backstory, with not being a full story, just being a little flashback, a quick little, maybe 10 minutes at most. Episode 2 is going to be entirely about Buggy and his situation. It's going to be an entire episode on the Buggy on the island with Luffy and Zoro saving everybody. They get Nami and they leave. That's the entirety of episode 2. They could easily fit that because Buggy's episodes count for, I think, like 3 or 4. Here's where I start skipping stuff. We need to skip Goemon. The dude in the treasure chest with the moss head, he's got to be skipped. He's got to be skipped. There's no way we can fit that in, and he doesn't pertain to anything in the actual story. I'm sorry for people who love this guy, who think he's important. He's not. He's really not important to the story. I'm sorry. I don't see how he could be. And any kind of character development you see with like Luffy, Zoro, or Nami during this, that can be interspersed later. That can be done differently at a later point. We don't need. Episode 3 is going to be Usopp and Syrup Village. Episode 3 is going to cover from the moment they get to Syrup Village till they fight Captain Kuro and they get the boat, they get the Going Merry, and they leave. That's the entirety of episode 3. Usopp's backstory does not need to be a whole episode. It can simply be, hey, he's the village liar. We get 5 minutes of like, oh, the kids with Usopp, yay. That's about it. That's all we're going to get. Usopp's dad leaving to join Shanks' crew. That's 5 minutes at max, because Captain Kuro's a long fight. Granted, a lot of this pretty much takes place and is this long because they have to keep Luffy away from the fight. You don't have to spend that long in this animated series keeping him away anymore. You just don't. You have to keep him away, but you can speed that time up. Like, a lot of what makes the anime so long is the reactionary shots and the character explanations and the freeze frames, that sort of thing. That's why you can really get up to like episode 15 to 20 in 3 episodes in a live action hour-long series. You just can. It's going to be a lot faster paced. But that's not necessarily a bad thing in doing a live action version of One Piece, because that is a complaint One Piece already has, is that it's kind of poorly paced in the anime. And that's due to the production schedule and all. From here, this is where things start to stretch out a little bit, and the pacing gets to be a little bit longer, and maybe you get a little bit more fan servicey stuff in there. And I mean fan service is in like, oh, it's for the fans, not bazoingas. Episode 4 and 5 are both going to be on the Baratie. That's a long mini arc. That's a pretty long arc for this early in the series. It's the first real long arc we have. It's where we get Sanji, you meet not Axehand Morgan, I'm sorry, you meet Don whatever. I'm gonna call him Don Cheadle, I don't know. You get Mihawk's introduction, that whole thing. That's a solid 10 episodes to something. I don't remember how long. I don't have it pulled up, and I don't feel like looking it up. Baratie is going to cover 2 episodes. The first episode is going to be dealing with Dawn. The second episode is going to be dealing with Mihawk, including Zoro's 2 friends. If they're included in the anime, the 2 other bounty hunters, they're probably going to be in the anime. They're a little important to the whole Arlong Park arc, so I feel like they're going to have to be. But we don't need a whole episode on the food poisoning, not the food poisoning, I'm sorry, the whole episode on the scurvy. You just don't need it. It needs to be addressed, but you know, it's like, he's got scurvy, here's some fruits and vegetables, he'll be fine. After Baratie, as we all know, Nami leaves and she goes back to her home village. That village has been taken over by Arlong Park. That's going to cover another 2 episodes. At this point, we're up to episode 7. Arlong Park is the big arc. That is the big arc of East Blue. That is the Alabasta. That is the Dressrosa. This is important. You have to spend time on Arlong Park because this is the point. At this point, we're about episode 40. Arlong Park is very, very important to understand how Luffy functions and understand how Nami functions and everybody functions, really. You have to not stretch this out, but give it its proper due diligence. You know, Arlong Park, the first episode is the build-up into them raiding the park. The second episode for it, episode 7, would be the entirety of the fight at Arlong Park. It's gonna be the entire Arlong Park. Episode 8 and the final episode is where I feel like this falls apart. We have Logtown. One more little arc before we finish East Blue. We have Logtown. The problem with Logtown is that that's also like another 7 episodes, including Reverse Mountain. Because if we're gonna do the entire East Blue arc, I'm not sure if they're gonna go past Reverse Mountain and make it to the Grand Line, or they're going to get to Reverse Mountain. If they're going to get past Reverse Mountain, they're going to have to jam Logtown and Reverse Mountain into one episode, which is possible. It is possible, but we do need to spend time on a section with Luffy at the bar. He's going to have to be there. They need that. That's very important to the story. So that's, you know, at least 5-10 minutes. But overall, that's where I wish they did a 9th episode so they could have a full episode on Reverse Mountain and just trying to get through it. But they can't. Episode 8, Logtown and Reverse Mountain combined into one. Because Logtown theoretically doesn't really need to take that long. It doesn't have to take too long. Because we got Smoker's introduction. We've got Dragon's introduction, sort of. We've got leaving. We got the reintroduction of Buggy and Alvida. We have a lot happen in Logtown, but it can really, like, that all kind of happens at the same time, mostly. And so it's really stretched out in the anime to cover, like, 10 episodes. But it really just covers, you know, you can do that maybe half of one or one. Reverse Mountain's where I kind of get iffy on, mostly because Crocus is funny. I want to spend time on the comedy on that. That's hilarious. Plus, it's it's their final challenge before they get to the big boys. They start moving on into the scarier parts of the world. But those are my expectations for the live action series. I'm not speaking about, you know, CGI. I'm not speaking about acting, because the acting already looks okay as it is. I'm mostly just talking about how the pacing's going to be, because that's where my second fear is. Now, the CGI is my first fear. That's my first fear, is the CGI is like crap. It doesn't look like it's going to be bad. It's just, I need to see more than just Luffy's fist. I need to see more than Luffy's fist. Zoro's fights already look good, just from the trailer, but Luffy's fist are going to be kind of a selling point. Buggy can be practical. I was talking this with my wife. Buggy is theoretically possible to do practical effects for him, given how illusionists function with their, you know, magic tricks and stuff with that. But that remains to be seen. Buggy could also still be, you know, CGI and it would still work. But Luffy's going to be the real problem. Now the fishmen I hope are practical, except for maybe Hachi. But aside from that, everybody can work just fine. But the pacing's where the fear is, because if it goes too fast, we lose too much. But if we go too slow, it leads to losing out on other things that might be too important to skip out on. There needs to be a balance. And that's what this video is just my own expectations for where the episodes are going to be at. But if you have another idea about how the pacing's going to be, you know, you can talk to me in chat. Like this video if you want. I'd appreciate it. Sorry about being gone for like a week and a half. I needed a break. You know, I've done over 100 videos every day. I think I deserve a week off. Alright, bye.